Love bombing. Love bombing is the first tactic almost every documented cult uses, and it is the one most likely to work on anyone. The target is usually going through something. A loss. A move. A breakup. A point where their usual social world has thinned out and they are looking, even slightly, for somewhere to belong. The group finds them. At first it does not look like a group at all. It looks like a friend. Someone warm, attentive, interested in everything the target says. The attention is immediate and total. Then more people arrive who are just as warm. Invitations multiply. The target is welcomed at dinners, events, meetings. Everyone says the same thing: we have been looking for someone like you. Researchers who study cult recruitment call this phase love bombing. It is documented in exit interviews from members of the People's Temple, NXIVM, Scientology, and dozens of smaller groups. The warmth is real while it lasts. It is also engineered. The warmth is calibrated to fill exactly the shape of whatever the target is missing. The moment the target is fully inside, the warmth begins to shift. But by then, they are already attached. Us versus them. Once a person is inside the group, the second tactic begins. The outside world is reframed. Family members who ask questions are described as negative influences. Friends who express concern are labeled toxic or spiritually dangerous. The world outside the group is not just wrong. It is a threat. This has a name in social psychology. It is called black and white thinking, or splitting. The group becomes the only source of moral authority. Everyone outside it is either an enemy or a potential recruit. Exit interviews from former members of Heaven's Gate describe the outside world as so contaminated that members eventually did not want to leave even for an hour. They had been taught that external contact was spiritually harmful. The tactic works because it is gradual. No one announces on day one that your family is the enemy. The language shifts over weeks and months, one small redefinition at a time, until the member arrives at the conclusion themselves. By the time the member notices the isolation, they have already helped build it. That is not an accident. Information control. Every cult that has been studied in depth by researchers controls what its members are allowed to read, watch, and discuss. The mechanism is straightforward. Any information that could lead a member to question the group is labeled spiritually dangerous, suppressive, or simply false. The member is taught that exposure to it will harm them. In Scientology, this is formalized in writing. Materials critical of the organization are classified as n-theta, a term meaning interbulated theta, which the system defines as destructive energy. Members are explicitly trained to avoid them and to disconnect from people who consume them. NXIVM, the organization led by Keith Raniere that was prosecuted in 2019 for sex trafficking and racketeering, required members to report to coaches anytime they encountered outside information that made them doubt the program. The result is not ignorance. Members often become highly fluent in the group's own literature. They can debate its internal logic for hours. What they lose is the ability to evaluate it from the outside. When a researcher or a journalist or a family member presents a documented fact that contradicts the group's teaching, the member is not equipped to weigh it. They have never practiced that skill inside the group, because the group does not allow it. Sleep and food. Not all cult control is psychological. Some of it is biological, and it is more effective than any argument. Sleep deprivation measurably impairs critical thinking, emotional regulation, and the ability to assess risk. After 4 to 5 days of reduced sleep, a person's capacity to evaluate information is clinically comparable to moderate intoxication. Many high-control groups maintain intensive schedules that naturally limit sleep, pre-dawn prayer, late-night study sessions, all-night events described as spiritually necessary. Members rarely identify the schedule as harmful because they are too tired to analyze it. Former members of the People's Temple in Jonestown describe an average of 4 to 5 hours of sleep per night during the final months, combined with a diet that had been progressively reduced as resources were centralized under Jim Jones. Caloric restriction and dietary control serve a secondary function beyond the physical one. When the group controls food, it controls a daily, repeated reminder of dependency. You eat because the group feeds you. You wake when the group wakes you. A person who is chronically underslept and calorically restricted is not the same person who joined. The biology changes the psychology. The group did not need to argue them into compliance. The schedule did it instead. Confession. Confession is the tactic that looks the least like control and functions most completely as surveillance. Members are typically encouraged, and in some groups required, to confess their fears, their doubts, their family conflicts, their past transgressions, and their private beliefs to a senior member, a counselor, or the group's leader. In Scientology, the process is called auditing. Sessions are recorded. A detailed file is kept on each member. In NXIVM, members were required to provide compromising material about themselves as a condition of entry into higher levels. The material was held by the organization. The function of confession is double. It creates intimacy, which deepens commitment. And it creates leverage. A member who has disclosed their fears, their past, and their doubts has handed the group the exact tools needed to pressure them if they later consider leaving. Former members consistently describe a moment when they understood that their confessions had not been kept in confidence. In some cases, private material was read aloud in group settings to embarrass members who had stepped out of line. You told them what you were afraid of. They wrote it down. That information does not expire. Financial control. Money is one of the last things a person thinks of when they imagine cult tactics, and one of the first the group thinks of. Tithing, donating a fixed percentage of income to the group, is common across high-control religious organizations. In some groups the required percentage rises as the member advances. In others, giving beyond one's means is framed as an act of faith. In Scientology, advanced levels of spiritual training carry a published price list. Reaching the highest auditing levels has been estimated by former members to cost between $300,000 and $500,000 over a full membership. Financial depletion serves a structural purpose. A member who has spent their savings, taken out loans, or sold assets to fund their membership has raised the cost of leaving. Walking away does not just mean losing the community. It means losing everything spent to get there. Court documents from the NXIVM prosecution detailed that some members had been required to provide financial collateral in addition to personal compromising material as a condition of entry into a secretive inner group called DOS. By the time financial control has fully taken hold, the member's economic life and the group's economic life have merged. Leaving means starting from zero. The group knows that. The price was set that way. Exit cost. Leaving is the part the group designs most carefully of all. Every tactic described in this video contributes to a single outcome, making the cost of leaving feel greater than the cost of staying. The love bombing created attachment. The us versus them framing destroyed the outside network. Information control removed the tools to evaluate the situation clearly. Sleep deprivation impaired judgment. Confession provided leverage. Financial control made the outside world harder to return to. None of these required the member to agree. They accumulated whether the member noticed or not. Shunning is the social enforcement of the exit cost. In many high-control groups, members who leave are immediately cut off from everyone still inside. Scientology refers to this formally as disconnection. Former members describe losing their entire social world within days of announcing they are leaving. Researchers who study high-control groups note that the exit cost does not need to be used. Its existence is enough. A member who knows that leaving means losing their community, their finances, and potentially their family is already inside a structure that does not require locks. The most documented high-control groups in history, the People's Temple, Heaven's Gate, NXIVM, the Branch Davidians, did not keep members through force alone. They kept them through a system that made leaving feel impossible before it was ever tried. Some members never tried. Most of them had simply stopped believing the door was open.